Hey, sorry I'm late. I had a computer issue over the weekend and I ended up having to get a new computer. And then, of course, the one app that I didn't reinstall during the week was Zoom. So that took a moment. Um, yeah, after a bad night of sleep. And I heard you guys talking about being sick. Zoe's been sick for like off and on for it feels like months now. It's been such a strange winter in our house. So yeah, like she was up all night and um, yeah, I'm looking forward to this call, but I gotta admit, equally, I'm looking forward to a day off tomorrow. So and a full night of sleep. All right, well, let's get into it. I'm excited for this topic. This is about building confidence in running. And running specific confidence. And I think it's a really, just a valuable skill for all of our athletes to think about, and prospective athletes who might be listening to this call. I know when I was doing this outline and getting the information together and kind of like drawing from other podcasts that I listened to and other experts, that I felt like we've kind of like gone back and forth touching on this in different ways. Like we provide some good mental training tools and stuff like that on past calls. We talked about identity and like these different kind of like these different facets that kind of make up what I would call like a more of a mental approach to our running. Rather, a lot of training focuses just on the physical, but if we aren't training our brains, we're also missing out on really important adaptations that take place that allow us to become more prepared for events that we've got coming up, more prepared for challenges that we might have or might need to face in this process. So I think confidence is one of those things. And I feel like probably Drew and Sarah, I'm sure you guys have run into challenges as coaches where you have athletes who definitely like have low confidence. And then your job as a coach is to try to like build them up, right? Like get them to a place where they feel better about the work that they're doing and more equipped to go and pursue the goals that they have in mind, because the goals that we are all choosing as runners are often really, really challenging. I think about athletes who I've been working with who are working towards their first five, just running a fast 5K or like getting their 5K PR, or, they've been kind of like running that 5K time for a while. And then they really want to work up to a 10K or even like a half marathon. And that they're not sure, like, am I fast enough? Am I strong enough? And it's the same thing goes in the trail and ultra running scene. I think a lot of athletes, they have big dreams, but they wonder if they're ready. And so building confidence through a variety of different mechanisms can help kind of bridge that gap where we start to feel like the physical and the mental are more aligned, because overall health and well-being and overall well-trained athlete is going to be able to feel good physically and mentally. And those things are going to be in alignment and they're not going to be separated by large gaps. And if there are gaps there, that would be an indication that we need to explore and work on those things. So why is confidence a valuable skill for runners? Sarah, let's just start out with this general question. Why is this a valuable skill for runners?
Yeah, well, first, I think when we sort of defining it by its opposite, but when we don't have confidence, we don't take risks. So we don't push ourselves in the middle of a race. We don't sign up for the challenging thing. We don't grow. We kind of stay stuck. You really need confidence to be able to have a little courage and to do those things. And so I think that by the fact that everybody who signed up with us like has some sort of goal, right? There's something there. Like there is, because you wouldn't do this and sign up with a coach and set a goal if you didn't have some sort of self-belief. And so finding that, even if it doesn't feel very big, and watering that and like nurturing that, I think is, really pivotal.
Man, yes, exactly. And I feel like, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, but we have to remember, and maybe we'll just put this right out here at the beginning, so this is in every listener's mind: confidence is growable. This isn't something that you innately have. This is something that changes all the time. It's a tool that you're able to grow. It's also, in the same respect, it shrinks. And so there's always a give and a take and some oscillation there. So just remember that as we're going through this call and we talk about how to improve in some of these areas, this is a growable skill. That's why we're talking about it. Drew, you had some really good points on this. Just from that perspective of workouts, like, why is this such a valuable skill?
Yeah. So why is confidence important? All of us have seen ourselves run workouts where we have had confidence and workouts where we have not had confidence in ourselves and our ability, and very much see how workouts can be like very much impacted by the confidence you have or the lack thereof. I tie confidence really, really closely to positivity versus negativity. I almost use confidence and positivity synonymous with one another, like interchangeably, right? In a lot of discussions with my athletes, having confidence and being confident, or I guess positive about yourself and your outlook and whatever the workout or the race is, whatever it is, 100% will have a positive impact on your performance, right? Same like Sarah was saying, look at the alternative. You're not confident, you're not supporting yourself, you're letting those negative thoughts creep in, that negativity. I mean, just bad things happen when you're thinking, oh, this is going to suck. I don't think I can do this. This workout isn't going to go well. And just it spirals and snowballs out of control, and very much so, again, has a very real impact to those workouts. It's I think this all the time. Like when I was growing up running, my family didn't know a whole lot about running, but there's a lot of similarities between the confidence you experience in running versus other aspects of your life. And my dad used to always say, like, if you think you can, or you think you cannot, that's what's going to happen. So just like you think you can, like you're growing that confidence and building it. And then again, you see it, success or failure oftentimes happens, right? You can be the most confident person ever and still like not run the race you want to run. That happens. And I know we'll get into that later. But the more confident you are, the more likely you are to run well, race well, whatever well, life well, right?
Absolutely. Like if you believe in the tools that you have and you believe in the work that you've done, you are more likely to achieve the outcomes you're looking for. And I think that's really important to bring that knowledge into the rest of this conversation. So another thing that I want to touch on and just zoom us out for a second is the fact that, like, what is inherent in this process as runners is that we often find ourselves very isolated and alone in our own minds and with our own thoughts. And that is inherent in the process of running. I don't know any runners, but there are runners out there. I don't know any runners personally or have any on my current roster who run every run with somebody else. So that inherently means you're spending a lot of solo time out there. And especially, my ultra runners, that can be hours and hours of time in your own head. That's time doing workouts that are really hard. That's time working through fatigue in long runs. That's time alone in races. So we have to develop confidence and independence as athletes in order to deal with the challenges that arise when we're alone, because we don't have the ability to lean on others in those moments. We only have the tools we've developed, we have ourselves in those moments. And so, you know, what I also believe that when we're by ourselves out there and we're in our own heads, like the feelings we have are often like really amplified too, right? Like it's easy to get into a cycle of, I'm not going to get through this. I'm not equipped to deal with this challenge. I'm not ready for this. Like it's really easy to get into that because you don't have an external voice, a friend, whoever it is, a coach right there with you being like, no, look at all of these hard facts. You are ready for this. Or, you know, to just validate, yeah, it's okay that you feel like that. Like you don't necessarily have that part of like this process with you all the time. So those voices are amplified, and that's a real challenge. And this is a reason why we need to develop confidence so we can deal with those challenges in the moment, so we can, you know, manage our thoughts and our feelings in challenging situations, so we're able to perform better and work through those situations. Let's kind of like define confidence for everybody. My definition of confidence, and I think this is a fairly universal definition, but basically it's going to be our self-belief in our ability to accomplish the task that we're working towards. I kind of consider it like self-efficacy, like your ability to do what you're trying to do, and your belief in that. This is really, I think it's really important not to like overcomplicate the definition of this, because then it like might feel like it's less obtainable to become confident if it's something more convoluted than that. Like it's just your ability to accomplish the task that you're kind of like, that you're doing, like whatever it is, my ability to complete this long run. Like that's going to be my confidence. And my belief, like, what do I believe? Do I believe I can do this long run, or do I not believe, or do I have mixed emotions about it? And I think that's also key. Like confidence isn't necessarily like a black and white thing. Like you have it or you don't. I think it really works in different shades because, you know, through the whole process of training and stuff. And what I mentioned before is this is really growable. So some people are super confident because they've put in a lot of training. They have a lot of experience. They recognize those skills, and so they feel very equipped. Rather, other people are learning new skills, and so there's some gray area where they've gone from, you know, being a novice at something to beginning to skill up. I think that, you know, also in the training process, like confidence can ebb and flow when you have like a different kind of workout. For example, like you might feel really confident doing your hill strides, but then like not as confident moving to 1 minute, like more sustainable hills or intervals. And so like that confidence can also be transferable. Like your belief in doing one workout versus the other is, you know, a learnable skill. Like how do we transfer that confidence? So like, I feel like what I'm saying is like, this is really multifaceted, right? Like, there's no like inherent confidence. Like this is something that we're all building, and it exists because of experience. It exists because of like our beliefs and our perceptions, like very much like what Drew mentioned. Like, do you believe that you can complete the workout? And what Sarah mentioned before, like, you know, what are your beliefs? Like, what are your perceptions? How do you feel about something? To take this one step further, I think it's really important to like break confidence into two parts. We've talked a lot about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation on past calls, and also like where we get our validations from. Do our validations come from externals? Like, are we leaning on stuff like social media or Strava posts and likes to make us feel good? Or are we leaning more on our own internal thought processes and things like our inner coach to build us up? And so that like external versus internal does exist in the area of confidence too. So we have like outside confidence and we have inside confidence, or intrinsic and extrinsic confidence. Really, really important, because if we are too reliant on extrinsic confidence, like confidence that comes from externals, things that are outside of our control, outside of ourselves, we are often caught in cycles where we are over reliant on validation from other places to make us feel like we're prepared to do things that are challenging. We need to be constantly working towards developing confidence that comes from within, where we're drawing on our experiences, the hard things that we've done. We're drawing on all of that, the tools that we have to build ourselves up from the inside out. And I think often there are great examples in culture and society of people who are extrinsically confident. They are like really loud. They like, you know, they try to like take up a lot of energy in a room. They often like try to persuade people to believe what they believe. Like it's a heroic individualism sometimes that we see in culture. I really love some of the ways that Steve Magnus and Brad Stuhlberg have talked about this in Peak Performance and the practice of groundedness, where we're really trying to not be judgmental when we encounter people like that in our lives, but we hold those examples at a proper distance, because the research really suggests that people who are outwardly confident like that are actually not inwardly confident. And true confidence, and this connects to areas of like grit and resilience, that comes from within. So we really, really need to recognize that and build tools that allow us to work from the inside out. All right, so this is probably like what everybody wants to know is how do we grow our confidence? How do we go from a place where we're not feeling very confident to a place where we are, or like a place where we feel more equipped to deal with the challenges that we have, whether that's in sport, life, whatever it is. I like to first think about this as, again, a reminder, like, yes, confidence is growable and it's multifaceted, and there's not just like, I have it or I don't. There's different levels of confidence, and this is all growable. So I think we've talked a little bit about having a growth mindset and a mastery approach when we talked about the physical and physiological adaptation, and really getting into, the process of engaging in our training over time and stacking one training day on top of another, and that like there's really no end to that journey. And the same kind of mentality and mindset can be used to approach confidence. Like this is something that over time, we're consistently growing. Over time, we're working towards getting to places where we feel more confident, where we feel more equipped to deal with our challenges. And so having that growth mindset, I think, is the first like switch that we need to start turning on when we're working on becoming more confident and like working through a challenge. For example, if we've got a hill workout that's really tough, it's 3-minute hills. Like everybody is challenged by that. I think about 3-minute hills and I'm like, I know that sucks. It really hurts. And every time I get that workout, I have like a little light bulb goes off in my head where I'm like, I see that. I know what that's going to feel like. I don't like what that feels like. Oh, it'd be so much easier to like hit the couch today instead of go out and do that work. But we have, as runners, we know we have to prepare for the events that we're going to do. So we can't sit on the couch. We can't skip that workout. But we can build our confidence up to be able to push ourselves in those uncomfortable moments. So bring our attention to the fact that confidence in that specific moment is really growable. And I think that that is absolutely key. This growth mindset, I believe that it allows us to feel a little bit more motivated when we're going towards something that is challenging. It allows us to maybe go the extra mile, like when we're thinking like, this long run's feeling hard, this interval, I've got one more hill rep, whatever it is. Like when we know that our confidence is growable and we're going to grow our confidence by doing that hard thing, we're going to go the extra mile. I think that's really key. And I don't want athletes to forget that. And I think that we have so many great examples on our team of athletes who are willing to put themselves in that position and go that extra mile. And then they get such benefits after that. And particularly, I think like it's the importance of like going back and reflecting on what you're able to do. The other, I think, and I want to like talk more about specific workouts, but when we'll back up for 1 second. Let's talk about growth versus the fact that confidence sometimes takes a hit. So we understand like confidence is something that we need to approach with the growth mindset. It's a learnable skill, but also we can start to learn these things and then our confidence can take a hit, right? Like I think we see this all the time as coaches, and the athletes who are listening to this are probably going to be able to draw up an example of when their confidence might have taken a hit, whether they got sick, weren't training as consistently as they were before. Maybe they got challenged by something that was happening in life, whatever it is. Our confidence can sometimes take a hit. And so, this is something where we really need to make sure that we switch into that growth mindset. This is something I can work through. This is something that's growable. This is something that I can improve on over time. I also think that sometimes there's a gap that exists here when our confidence takes a hit, that we forget that that's the opportunity to rise up, is when we feel like our confidence takes that hit. And this is something that I really like to point out in my pre-race emails to athletes. We don't come to races because they're easy. We come into the race because they offer us challenges that inevitably ask us to grow, to find light at an end of the tunnel, to see what is beyond the challenges that are inherent in that process. If we have some disillusionment that the race or the workout is going to be easy, that challenge in perception can be really difficult to work through. But when we know that challenges are inherent, that they're part of the process, we can start to encounter those challenges and use them as the growth moment, or like an opportunity to do the mental push-up. And I think that this is one of the most key aspects to building confidence. When you are confronted with the challenge, shift into that mindset where this is where I grow. This is where I use my growth mindset. This is where I do the work. This is what this process is really all about on a micro level. Because like something that I have often viewed about training and maybe life in general is that like life doesn't really get easier, especially if we're growing and pushing as people. We often end up in more challenging situations more often as a process of growth and moving forward. And so that work is inevitable, and that work is something that we have to perpetuate in order to continue to meet our goals and to move forward. So if we're not willing to look at things as like, these challenges are our rise up moments, these are our growth moments, we get really challenged and confidence really suffers. So when confidence starts to take a hit, use that as an opportunity to perpetuate the process and get back out there and do some work. So if you went out and pushed a workout and it didn't feel great, maybe you found yourself at the end of that long tempo, giving up a little bit mentally on holding that pace, that's okay. Give yourself grace in that moment. Use that as an opportunity for reflection. And then you want to perpetuate the process forward, knowing that you can build off of that, even though it wasn't the exact outcome that you were desiring. We're not going to play into that. We're going to perpetuate the process. We're going to let that go and get back out there tomorrow. And that is a critical skill for building confidence. You see this a lot in professional athletes and performers. They don't get hung up on when they didn't show up fully. They don't get hung up on when they had a challenge. They basically accept the situation and then let it go and perpetuate the process forward. They don't spend a lot of time in the rearview mirror dwelling on these things, because that cycle, as we talked about before, isn't really part of building confidence. All right.
I love that concept. So just to chime in real quick, just to reemphasize what you're saying, TJ, like once a run is done, challenging, good, bad, doesn't matter. Once a run is done, you log it, you forget about it. It's that short-term memory loss is a good thing concept, right? And then to perpetuate moving forward, like tell yourself out loud. It's going to sound silly when you're in your kitchen by yourself, like talking to yourself, but tell yourself like, okay, that didn't go great, but I'm going to prepare myself better for next time, and I will do better next time. Or what did I do that I could have changed to have a different outcome? Like say it out loud, like write it down. It's more likely to happen when you take that physical step towards it. So that when that time comes, when you redo your hill workout or you redo a speed workout, or not redo, but the next one, you know what I'm saying? Then you're like, okay, I've done this before. It didn't go well, but I've prepared myself for this moment and I am going to do better today. And just, again, saying it out loud, it's more likely to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sarah.
And just jumping in on that, with the idea of the growth mindset, we are always moving from periods of confidence to less confidence, or competence to incompetence to competence, right? If you always have the confidence and the competence of something, then you're not gaining any knowledge. You're not pushing yourself. So you have to have periods where you don't know what you're doing, where you don't feel like you've got it dialed, because that's where the learning happens. So that is just a natural part of growing.
Exactly. And if you're somebody who is struggling with that concept, think about it from a physiological perspective. Detraining is also part of the process of training. So when you go out and do a big race and you take a bunch of days off, there's a little detraining happening there, right? Like you're losing some adaptations. You're not engaged in the process of consistency, but that's okay, because that process of rest, it gives us the ability to then grow afterwards. It sets the stage, it resets the systems. And I think that the same thing really exists. So when we look at these concepts, not as isolated concepts, but as concepts that are working together, the physical works with the mental and the mental works with the physical, and the two have to be attuned together in order for athletes to really reach their potential. It's, I think, a lot easier for athletes to understand this when they frame it through something that feels less abstract. Like we're training to create physiological adaptations, but as you'll hear in this next kind of section in this call, we're also training to create mental adaptations as well that build our confidence. In the training process, the process of training is probably the most pivotal and key part of building confidence. So try to bring that growth mindset and understanding into this, and then visualize your training log kind of like in your head. Visualize like your next 4 weeks of training. Here's where I am. Here's where my coach has me going. Here are the workouts in between that like build up and help elicit physiological adaptation. And then remember that that same process of building those physiological adaptations, they are also, if we're aware of it, are pushing us mentally, right? So think about this week, I'm doing 10 by 1 minute intervals. Next week, I'm doing 12 by 1 minute intervals. Then I'm doing 7 by 2 minute intervals. And that increment of changing up the work ratio by 2 minutes a week, and then jumping to duration of 2 minutes from 1 minute. Think about like how that feels physically, right? Like it feels challenging. And then what do we need to do mentally to work through those challenges? So the process of making the workouts more challenging also gets us into this situation where we're beginning to expose ourselves to difficulty in small doses. And over time, that process allows us to feel more confident. And so it's the same thing as physically rising up to those challenges and being able to deal with the demands of that workout on the physical body. The same thing exists with being able to deal with that mentally. So one of the keys And you will see this in it like across the board in good coaching, is that workouts are not only meant to elicit physiological responses, but mental responses too. And this is like where we really get into like the nuts and bolts of this when we're dealing with how do we build confidence towards a race that we come up, like that's coming up. So let's lean into a little bit. I'm going to have the other coaches help me on this, is building confidence through training. Sarah, talk to us a little bit about the concept of getting comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, so we want to, like on race day, you don't want that to be the first time that your body is experiencing discomfort. That's going to be like a shock to the system. You're not going to know how to prepare for it. So as, throughout training, when you have the opportunities to engage in discomfort, so like the conditions suck outside and like you'd rather not run in bad conditions, give yourself the opportunity to be out in challenging conditions, because that will give you that experience. And like TJ's been talking about, the confidence that comes with that experience. Sorry, I lost my spot. Here we go. And yeah, if every time you start experiencing something uncomfortable, you avoid it, you turn away from it, you stop it, then the next time that experience comes up, you're going to do the same thing, right? There's no belief that you can go through that. But if you have given yourself that belief, you have that lived experience, you're telling your brain, hey, this is safe. Because what happens when we experience something scary, or what our body perceives as a threat, it sends up the stress response and does everything to tell us to stop. So we have to tell our brain, hey, actually, this is safe. I know this feels a little bit uncomfortable, but this is safe, so that it sends up less of an alarm. That alarm takes longer to go off, right? And so we do that by giving it more and more experiences and getting it used to that stimulus.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it, Sarah. It's all about that conditioning over time. I'm looking at a couple of my athletes who are on the call. Hi, Zena and Steven. You guys have been like crushing this lately, and it's been really fun to watch. You both are working towards very different things, but you're both doing that same thing, whether you're conscious of it or not. I actually think you guys are both really conscious of this. But I just wanted to make that connection back to the team for a minute, and into those real life experiences that are happening out there. Every workout kind of builds on the next one in order to slightly level up our confidence there, to give that like small challenge that then we're asked to rise up to, and then from there we get like a little bit more confidence, like, oh, look at that thing that I did that was really hard. I think in a lot of cases, athletes sometimes end up out at their race, and this usually happens with athletes who haven't had a coach, because good coaching, like I mentioned before, is going to be helping the athlete raise the bar, both in the physiological and the mental, right? Like those workouts work both ways. And I got this quote from, I think it was from Jason Fitzgerald. I thought it was really great. And he says that when racing, you don't rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training. And so what this means is training is really, really key in building comfort, dealing with adverse situations. And when we feel comfortable dealing with adverse situations, we feel more confident in ourselves, and we know we can get through the inherent challenges that are going to be out there, putting obstacles in our way on race day. And, I think it's really important to consider the fact that, the race is the celebration of all of those little moments of adversity that you work through during the training process. And if the training feels too easy, tell your coach, we don't need to be leaping every single week, but we do need there to be a little bit of a strain on those key days, the long runs and the workouts, particularly when we're building towards a race. When we're in base building periods, we're more relaxed, we're more flexible. That same thing doesn't need to exist week by week. But when we are training towards key races, it absolutely has to. So if you're an athlete who is like, oh, maybe I'm not getting enough work, you know, this feels too good. And like, I'll look at Steven for a second, because he tends to like be really equipped for his workouts and surprise me every single week. And so it's like, I'm just going to keep tweaking a little bit every single week to elicit just a little bit more mental challenge. So there's some more growth that's happening there. All right, let's get into the specifics of like how we can use, use a workout to build some confidence. Drew, you mentioned in here breaking things down. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so this can be within workouts or can actually be within races as well. The idea is that when you think of the totality of whatever you're doing, let's say it's like a hill repeat workout, where going into you're maybe less confident, right? You're like, man, I don't know, coach wrote me a hard one this week. I don't know if this is something that I can do. That negativity and that doubt starts to creep in. Break it down. You're doing one at a time, or I'm going to do two and then reassess, or whatever it is. Like just making the workout smaller and to less daunting of a mental task can really, really help kind of shift that focus away from, just that daunting workout to like, I know that I can do this hill once, right? And they told me I have to do these hills like 4 times or 6 times. I know I can do it once. I'm going to do that one, get done, and then be like, you know what, it's time to do the next one, and kind of go through it one by one. I've run marathons this way, where I didn't think that I had any business going into it, obviously did, but like had thought that I didn't have any business running as fast as I was told I needed to run. So what do? I'm like, listen, 1 mile at a time, right? I'm going to stick to this pace, do my mile. And then I just did that 26 times, which sounds ridiculous now that I'm saying it out loud. But in doing that, it helped me get through the thing and ran what I was supposed to run. So there's that aspect, like breaking things down. But as it pertains to workouts too, if you are running a race, and you have the opportunity to run like on the course, for example, to give you more familiarity with kind of what to expect on race day, that's a huge confidence builder too. And that can be hill repeat workouts, that can be speed workouts, that can be your long runs, obviously. But any aspect of that can never be overlooked. Obviously, like if you're having to fly somewhere or drive long distance to run in a race, that's not possible. You can still mimic a little bit of this and that. But if you're close to where you're racing, like do your workouts, honestly, sometimes as many as you can, depending on the terrain and whatnot, and accessibility. But doing those workouts on the course itself is like huge, super clutch.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And so, kind of what you're describing there, Drew, is that most of our time is going to be spent in training, right? Like our cumulative time as runners is actually spent in training, not actually out on the course. And so when we do get the opportunity to spend time on the course, it gives us a nice mental edge. We can start to be able to visualize the specific challenges in greater detail that we're going to encounter on race day. And this is something, again, I'm looking at my athletes here on the call who have big races coming up and are spending time doing that. And I'm like, yes, like that's what we need to be doing, because that in part helps build confidence. It allows us to start to visualize what's ahead and then give us the tools and the visualization details to process those challenges and develop specific tools for working through those challenges. That's how we build confidence. Another way that we can do this, and we talked about mental rehearsals, there's also physical rehearsals where we are actually trying to bring up some of those emotions, some of the exact like emotions and environment and all of the different factors that go into races. So one of the ways that we can do this is like using your car as an aid station and practicing moving through the aid station really quickly during your long run, or making sure that like on that same run, you get up in the morning, you eat the same thing you would on race day, you pack the exact same bag you would on race day, you use all the same nutrition you would on race day, you use the same process-oriented goals that you would on race day. And although you're doing a long run, you treat that day as close as you can to an actual race scenario. So that way we're starting to tune into these small things that exist at the event itself and don't always exist in training, even though the training is attempting to elicit uncomfortable situations and challenges and running through fatigue and all these things. There are going to be different aspects of race day that can throw us off if we're not prepared. This is another reason why doing like shorter races, A races, B races in the lead up to like your big race for the year is really key, because we're conditioning ourselves to the actual experience that we're going to have on race day. And we don't need to run 100 miles to know we can run 100 miles. You know, it's okay to do, you know, a 50K or something much shorter, because we don't need the full experience to know that we can do it. Like Drew said, backing up a little bit, it's small doses of these things over time. It's breaking the process down that actually, when we use self-reflection, starts to build our intrinsic confidence. Another thing that I wanted to note on this is thinking about goals just for a second. If you're thinking about your goals and you're thinking about them in the right way, you're framing the work that you need to do along the way to get prepared. If you're not a little bit scared of that work, I think we might be having a little bit too much like overconfidence in ourselves. And it's important to really be humbled in a way by the goals that we choose. Those goals have to not only be in alignment with our values, our interests, right? Because we need those things are like little carrots that help us get through the training process. But we need to be mindful of what we're choosing and then the demands that that event like requires of us inherently in the training process. If you want to run a really long race or a race that's long for you, you have to be willing to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and run longer on your long runs. And if you're unwilling or mentally that feels like too much of a leap to dive into that discomfort there and that unknown, the uncertainty that exists, maybe we need a smaller goal first to help you get there, to really build up in smaller steps. So I just want to tie this in for one quick second into the goal oriented thinking. We have to get uncomfortable in our training to really adequately prepare ourselves for the inherent discomfort that comes on race day. If you're not willing to do that, you have to reevaluate your goals. Like if your goal is to just like run with your friends and get a little bit better over time and be consistent and have accountability, love it. Awesome. Let's just make sure we don't choose a goal that asks you to train and live in a different way than you want to, because we want to make sure those things are in alignment. That's where you're going to get the most joy. And I think this is where a lot of gray area can exist in the process of building confidence, because we talk a lot about coaches about like wanting to find joy in the process and enjoy, you know, our runs. And it's not always about eliciting like the most specific training adaptations. Sometimes it's more about like having fun in the process and all this stuff. And I think that's really key. But remember, we've got to elicit some discomfort in the training process to be adequately prepared for our races. And so some side of you, I feel like some side of you should find some kind of joy in that process of rising up in the training too, and dealing with those challenges. If that's not you, that's okay. You're awesome just how you are. Let's just make sure we choose goals that are in alignment with what you want to do and how you want to live your life. Like I like to choose specific goals for me that forced me to really get uncomfortable in training. And that's kind of like part of who I am. And I like to see myself rise up and sometimes succumb to those challenges and then get back out there and go again. I'm into that process. And so that works for me, but that's not the same for everybody. And so this is so individual. And that's why I like talk with your coach about your goals. Don't be afraid to just bring to the table your feelings about all this stuff. And it's okay to change your goals too, if you need to, if you're feeling like things aren't in alignment. All right, let's see. Cool. Sarah, I feel like before you have to jump, you have a couple really good notes here that are helpful in the process for building intrinsic confidence, the milestones and acknowledgement. Would you be able to just talk about those real quick?
Yeah. So yeah, a couple of things that I really want to drive home. One is celebrating things all along the way. So this is just acknowledging and having awareness of the progress that you're making. So it's really normal for us to make a lot of progress and still be looking forward at where we want to go and not stopping and looking back at all of the progress that we've made. So making sure that you're taking time, like I think Drew Weekly kind of celebrates with his athletes that they've done another week of training, right? Something like that, doing that for yourself though, because we're working on that intrinsic motivation piece. So I link that that can kind of connect to affirmations. So telling yourself something positive about yourself. So where I was just saying, you know, celebrating our milestones, you can think about that as like self-appreciation and gratitude for the progress that you have made. So that can be more comfortable. So if you think about positive self-talk and negative self-talk as muscles that we have, if you every time that you tell yourself a positive thought or an affirmation, you're building that muscle, right? And every time you tell yourself a negative thought, you're building that muscle. So you really want to notice your negative thoughts so you're not saying them so often, and you can decrease that muscle. And you want to lift you want to say affirmations and build that muscle, but we don't want to lift too heavy right away. And so for some folks, it can be really uncomfortable to be like, I'm amazing, I'm so great, I'm going to win, right? And that feels really inauthentic and So you might start with something like appreciation, like I showed up today, I'm following my training, right? Just acknowledging yourself. It doesn't have to be this amazing celebration. It can be if that feels good. So you want to build up that muscle and tell yourself positive things over and over again so that you can grow that muscle.
Yes, I love that. And that's such an important tool in our tool set for developing confidence. And I think you kind of like reiterated this a little bit and went over it, Sarah, but let's also remember past accomplishments. And this is really in the same vein. Like when we look back at what we have done, and then we attach those feelings to like positive visualizations and the way we're evaluating our training, it allows us to build intrinsic confidence. This is confidence that comes directly from the things that we've done. And it does not come from other externals that are largely outside of our control. I think it's also really key to, think about like what's your upcoming race all about? Or what's your upcoming training session all about? What images come to mind for you when you think about like what you're gonna be, going for? Often like we're fixated as humans and focused on things that don't go right and bad feelings. And although that's like fairly normal, we also have the power to switch up that way of thinking. And this is something that both Drew and Sarah note, like the power of positive thought is really, really important. And so when we refocus on positive sensations, it helps us to stop over indexing on moments when things went wrong. Like the growth process is really about acknowledging that things are going to be going wrong all the time, but we're still perpetuating the process forward. That's what it means to be building confidence. That's what it means to really be an athlete and involved in an athletic life, is we're moving forward. We're trying to improve and get better, elicit adaptations. I really want athletes to be mindful of where they put their attention. Are we over-indexing on things that haven't gone right, that are grow moments, that are moments that help us build our confidence? Or are we focusing and turning those things into positives? I also think that it's really important to not like use the word should. I should have done this. I should have done that. That is not very confident language, right? Let's think about, and I think that it also like invalidates the work that we're doing. Like you're entitled to feel how you feel, but don't attach a should to it. Like accept what happened and then use it as an opportunity to improve tomorrow. This is just like what Drew said earlier. What is your preparation? How are you interpreting your workout? And then let it go and move forward. No shoulds. Also, I think it's really great to consider conversations with a coach, consider conversations with friends, training partners, talk to them about like how you're feeling. So that way, you know, you can have that conversation that checks some of your thoughts, especially if you're over indexing on like those growth moments. If you're looking at them through the lens of like, I'm not enough in this moment. I didn't do that perfectly. I think also journaling can be really helpful for some athletes who are more like internally focused. I'm kind of one of those people. Like, I don't necessarily want to like externalize all the things that are going on in my mind, but like, I like to think about that through a more private process. Yeah, gosh, one of the keys to all of this before we end the call, I think, is just recognizing that this is a really long-term process. If you're using one of the mental skills that we spoke about in last week's call, the mental tool set call, if you're using one of those skills, if you are working on developing positive associations and attaching them to those growth moments, if you are working on meditation, deep breathing for grounding and letting go of nerves and anxiety before a workout that you feel like is challenging. Like if you're working on any of these new skills, know that it takes consistency and patience in utilizing and using those skills, those tools, to really realize the full benefits of that. So we're talking about like months of practice. I know that sounds overwhelming, but like every day we have a small opportunity to try one of these tools and to see how we like it, and to use that same process that we might use for in other parts of our lives, learning what our likes and dislikes are, and then discarding the things that we don't enjoy so we can engage more fully in the stuff that we do. The same process exists here. Like, don't be nervous about trying visualization. But like, no, if you only try it once, you will likely not realize the benefits of it. Like, it's the same thing with positive thoughts. If you're only going to try it once, or affirmations once, note that you will not realize the benefits of it. It's just like that compounding consistency principle is really, really key. So continue to develop your practice, build out the habit, and just put in a little bit of work every day. And you have to really realize like confidence requires that kind of work. I know we have so many examples in culture. It's pervasive everywhere. Heroic individualism, and like these people who seem like they're so confident, and it just comes to them. And it's like, man, wow, that guy, wow, that girl is so confident. But like, that may be a facade, first of all. So keep that at a safe distance, and know that if it is genuine confidence, that's confidence that has required a lot of work in cultivation, experience, and expertise in whatever field that individual is confident in. And so you too can be confident, but you have to also put in that work. And so let's try to remove the stigma that might exist in some of these confident examples we get in the media today. Like, confidence takes work. It's a daily process. We're constantly failing. We're constantly working towards better outcomes. Like, that is integral in this process, and like what this is all about. I think personally, like, a way that I like to reframe this when I fall short and I develop an awareness around something that I need to work on, I personally find inspiration in that. Like I find it empowering in knowing where my weaknesses exist or where I'm not confident, because that gives me something to really focus on. And so just having little spins that work for you, that you developed over time through the process of using some of these skills and just building awareness around this, can really, really help. So again, let's like just try one of these tools on this weekend's long run, or, you know, maybe two of these tools. Like maybe we'll do a little bit of a like a dress rehearsal for an upcoming race, but then we'll also try to use some affirmations out there in low moments. Yeah, I feel like we've exhausted the topic. I hope that you guys all got some good information out of this. I know that that was really helpful for me. But thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate it when athletes come live for this. So it makes it a little more fun. So it's great to see you guys. Drew, thanks. Appreciate your thoughts as well. I think you brought some really good perspectives into this. If anybody has follow-ups or specific questions about building confidence, I'd love to, or mental tools, I'd love to address that on future calls. So you know where to find us. Just send an email over. All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thank you so much.
See you, TJ. Good job, dude.
Thanks.